The Premier of Ontario just issued a shocking warning that has sent ripples across the province. 10 cities are on the brink of economic collapse, and the consequences could affect every single person living in Ontario. What's even more alarming is that some of these cities were once considered economic powerhouses. The question isn't if this will impact you, but how soon and how severely. Today we're breaking down the harsh reality facing Ontario's most vulnerable communities. Number 10. Sudbury. The mining capital of Northern Ontario is facing its darkest hour in decades. What many don't realize is that Sudbury's economy has been hanging by a thread since the global commodity prices started their downward spiral. The city that once supplied the world with nickel and copper is now watching its primary employers shut down operations one by one. Vail's recent announcement of scaling back operations has left thousands of workers uncertain about their future. But here's what's truly concerning. Sudbury has been so dependent on mining that when the industry struggles, everything else crumbles. Local businesses are closing their doors, property values are plummeting, and young people are leaving in droves for opportunities elsewhere. The unemployment rate has skyrocketed to levels not seen since the 1990s recession. Families who have called Sudbury home for generations are now forced to make impossible choices between staying in a city with no opportunities or leaving behind everything they've ever known. The ripple effect extends far beyond the mining sector. Healthcare services are being cut, schools are consolidating, and basic infrastructure maintenance is being deferred due to budget constraints. What makes this situation even more precarious is that Sudbury lacks the economic diversity to weather this storm. Unlike larger cities that can pivot to different industries, Sudbury's fate remains tied to the volatile commodity markets. The question looming over every resident is whether their city can reinvent itself before it's too late. Number 9. Thunder Bay. Northwestern Ontario's largest city is grappling with a crisis that goes far deeper than economic statistics can capture. Thunder Bay's port, once a bustling hub for grain shipments from the prairies, has seen a dramatic decline in activity as shipping routes and trade patterns have shifted. The forestry industry, another pillar of Thunder Bay's economy, has been devastated by mill closures and reduced demand for traditional forest products. Resolute Forest Products and other major employers have either closed facilities or significantly reduced their workforce, leaving entire neighborhoods struggling to survive. But perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of Thunder Bay's decline is the human cost. The city has one of the highest crime rates in Canada, and social issues have spiraled as economic opportunities have vanished. Indigenous communities in the region face particular hardships, with many young people leaving their traditional territories in search of work and education opportunities. The brain drain is real and accelerating. Thunder Bay's young graduates from Lakehead University increasingly see no future in their hometown, choosing instead to migrate to Toronto, Calgary, or even out of the country entirely. This creates a vicious cycle where the city loses its most educated and energetic residents just when it needs them most to drive innovation and change. Infrastructure is aging rapidly, and the tax base is shrinking as population declines. Essential services are being stretched to their limits, and there's growing concern about whether Thunder Bay can maintain basic municipal services in the coming years. Number 8. Sault Ste. Marie. The Steel City's identity has been shaken to its core as the traditional manufacturing base that built this community continues to erode. Algoma Steel, the massive complex that employed thousands and defined the city's skyline, has been through multiple ownership changes and restructuring efforts, each time emerging smaller and more vulnerable. What's particularly troubling about Sault Ste. Marie's situation is how quickly the decline has accelerated. Just a few years ago, there was optimism about the steel industry's future, but global competition and changing market demands have made it increasingly difficult for North American steel producers to compete. The psychological impact on the community cannot be overstated. Generations of families built their lives around steel production, passing down not just jobs, but an entire way of life from parent to child. Now those traditions are being broken as young people realize there's no future in following their parents' footsteps. Local businesses that depended on steelworkers' paychecks are closing one after another. The downtown core, once vibrant with shops and restaurants, now has more empty storefronts than active businesses. Property values have fallen so dramatically that homeowners find themselves trapped, unable to sell and relocate even if they wanted to. The city's attempts at economic diversification have shown some promise, particularly in tourism and renewable energy, but these new sectors employ far fewer people and pay significantly less than the industrial jobs they're meant to replace. The gap between what was lost and what's been gained is vast and growing. Number 7. North Bay. The city that calls itself the Gateway to the North is finding that fewer and fewer people want to pass through that gateway anymore. North Bay's economy has been hit from multiple directions, creating a perfect storm of economic hardship. The military presence, once a reliable source of employment and economic stability, has been reduced as Canadian Forces Base North Bay scaled back operations. This isn't just about lost jobs, it's about lost economic multiplier effects that ripple through the entire community when military families relocate elsewhere. North Bay's role as a transportation hub has also diminished as shipping and logistics patterns have evolved. The railway operations that once made the city an important stop are now largely automated or bypassed entirely. This has left behind infrastructure and communities built around industries that no longer need them. The healthcare sector, traditionally a major employer in smaller cities, is struggling with staffing shortages and budget constraints. As medical professionals choose larger centers with better opportunities and resources, North Bay residents increasingly find themselves traveling long distances for specialized care. What's most concerning is how these challenges compound each other. As young people leave for education and don't return, the population ages, creating additional strain on healthcare and social services while reducing the tax base needed to fund them. It's a demographic time bomb that's already started exploding. The natural beauty and recreational opportunities that surround North Bay should be assets for tourism and quality of life, but without jobs and economic opportunities, these advantages can't sustain a community on their own. Number 6. Timmins. The City of Gold is losing its luster as mining operations face unprecedented challenges. Timmins built its entire identity around gold mining, but that foundation is proving less stable than anyone imagined. Major mines are exhausting their economically viable ore bodies, and new discoveries aren't keeping pace with closures. Goldcorp's porcupine operations, which have been the backbone of Timmins' economy for over a century, have seen significant downsizing. When century-old operations start winding down, it's not just about current jobs, it's about the end of an era and a way of life that defined entire generations. The isolation factor compounds every challenge Timmins faces. Unlike southern Ontario cities that can tap into larger economic networks, Timmins' remote location makes economic diversification extremely difficult. The cost of transportation for goods and services puts local businesses at a severe disadvantage. Healthcare and education face particular challenges in Timmins. Recruiting and retaining professionals in remote locations has always been difficult, but it's becoming nearly impossible as economic uncertainty makes the city less attractive to newcomers. This creates a dangerous spiral where reduced services make the city even less viable. The indigenous communities in the Timmins area face additional challenges as traditional mining partnerships evolve and economic opportunities become scarcer. These communities have complex relationships with mining companies that go back generations, but as operations scale back, those relationships and the economic benefits they provided are also diminishing. Young people in Timmins face a stark choice: stay in a city with limited opportunities or leave everything familiar behind. Most are choosing to leave, creating a demographic crisis that threatens the community's long-term survival. Number 5. Sarnia. The Chemical Valley is choking on its own legacy as the petrochemical industry that built this city undergoes fundamental changes. Sarnia's massive chemical complex, once the pride of Canadian industrial might, is now a liability as global markets shift and environmental regulations tighten. Imperial Oil, Shell, and other major operators have been scaling back operations or closing facilities entirely. Each closure doesn't just eliminate direct jobs, it removes entire supply chains and service industries that depended on those operations. The economic ecosystem that took decades to build is unraveling in just a few years. Environmental concerns add another layer of complexity to Sarnia's challenges. The very industries that provided prosperity have left behind environmental legacies that now cost millions to address. Cleanup costs and regulatory compliance are making it increasingly expensive to operate in the Chemical Valley. The skilled workforce that made Sarnia famous for technical expertise is aging out, and there aren't enough young people entering the trades to replace them. Training programs exist, but students increasingly question whether there will be jobs waiting for them when they graduate. Border proximity to Detroit should be an advantage, but it's become a liability as workers can easily commute to American jobs while Canadian operations struggle. This creates a one-way flow of economic benefit that doesn't help Sarnia's tax base or local businesses. Air quality issues, while improved from decades past, still make Sarnia a difficult sell for attracting new residents and businesses from clean industries. The city is trapped between its industrial past and an uncertain future. Number 4. Elliott Lake. Once known as Canada's uranium capital, Elliott Lake represents perhaps the most dramatic example of boom-to-bust economics in Ontario. The uranium mining that created this city virtually overnight in the 1950s has been gone for decades, but the community is still struggling to find its new identity. The attempt to rebrand as a retirement community showed initial promise, but has created its own set of challenges. An aging population requires extensive healthcare services that are difficult to provide in a remote location. The tax base is shrinking as retirees typically have lower incomes than working families. Infrastructure built for a much larger population during the uranium boom is now expensive to maintain with a fraction of the original residents. Water systems, roads, and buildings designed for thousands more people create ongoing financial burdens that a small community can barely sustain. The isolation factor is particularly challenging for Elliott Lake. Young people who grow up there have limited options for education and career development without leaving the community. Medical facilities and specialized services continue to be consolidated or eliminated, making life increasingly difficult for the aging population that the city has courted. The very demographic that was supposed to save Elliott Lake is becoming the source of its greatest challenges. Number 3. Windsor. The Motor City of Canada is sputtering as the automotive industry that defined this border city continues its painful transformation. While not entirely abandoning Windsor, major automakers have shifted significant production to Mexico and other lower-cost jurisdictions, leaving behind a skills mismatch and economic uncertainty. Chrysler's Windsor assembly plant and Ford's engine operations remain, but they're shadows of their former selves in terms of employment. Modern automotive manufacturing is highly automated, requiring fewer workers but demanding higher skills. Many longtime automotive workers find themselves unable to transition to the new reality. The proximity to Detroit, once Windsor's greatest asset, now highlights the stark differences in economic recovery. While Detroit has shown signs of revitalization, Windsor struggles with its identity as a border city that's increasingly irrelevant to cross-border commerce and industry. Downtown Windsor faces particular challenges with vacant storefronts and declining property values. The casino and tourism industry provide some economic activity, but these sectors are volatile and don't provide the stable, well-paying jobs that manufacturing once offered. The brain drain is accelerating as University of Windsor graduates increasingly see better opportunities across the border or in Toronto. This creates a dangerous cycle where the city loses its most educated residents just when it needs innovation and leadership most. Border security changes since 2001 have also impacted Windsor's role as a trade corridor. Increased delays and security requirements have made some businesses reconsider their reliance on cross-border operations, reducing Windsor's strategic importance. Number 2. Oshawa. General Motors' departure from Oshawa in 2019 created an economic earthquake that the city is still struggling to recover from. The closure of the assembly plant didn't just eliminate thousands of direct jobs, it destroyed an entire ecosystem of suppliers, service providers, and businesses that depended on automotive workers' spending. What makes Oshawa's situation particularly tragic is how quickly everything changed. Just a few years ago, the city was thriving with steady, well-paying manufacturing jobs that provided middle-class stability for thousands of families. Today, those same families are struggling to find equivalent employment opportunities. The skills gap is enormous. Automotive assembly work provided good wages for workers without university degrees, but most of the replacement jobs either require advanced education or pay significantly less. Retraining programs exist, but they can't replicate the economic impact of the lost manufacturing jobs. Real estate markets have been hit hard as uncertainty about Oshawa's future makes both buyers and sellers nervous. Families who built wealth through homeownership are watching their primary investment stagnate or decline in value. The psychological impact on the community is profound. Oshawa's identity was built around automotive manufacturing, and losing that core industry has left residents questioning what their city stands for and where its future lies. Local businesses throughout Oshawa are feeling the ripple effects as consumer spending declines. Restaurants, retail stores, and service providers that relied on automotive workers' discretionary income are closing or reducing operations. Number 1. Hamilton. The most shocking name on this list might be Hamilton, given its proximity to Toronto and recent efforts at revitalization. But beneath the surface, Hamilton faces structural challenges that could undermine its apparent recovery. The steel industry that built Hamilton continues to struggle with global competition and changing market demands. While Stelco and ArcelorMittal Dofasco maintain operations, they employ far fewer people than in their heyday and face ongoing pressure from international competitors and environmental regulations. Hamilton's attempts to diversify into healthcare, education, and technology have shown promise, but these efforts haven't fully compensated for the decline in high-paying industrial jobs. McMaster University and the associated health sciences sector are bright spots, but they don't employ enough people to replace what's been lost. The housing crisis in Hamilton reflects deeper economic problems. While rising real estate prices might seem like a positive sign, they're largely driven by Toronto spillover rather than genuine local economic growth. This creates affordability challenges for longtime residents while not necessarily creating sustainable local employment. Infrastructure in Hamilton is aging and expensive to maintain. The city's industrial legacy includes environmental cleanup costs and outdated infrastructure that requires massive investment. Water systems, roads, and public facilities need billions in upgrades that the tax base struggles to support. The opioid crisis and related social issues have hit Hamilton particularly hard, creating additional costs for healthcare, policing, and social services. These challenges drain resources that could otherwise be invested in economic development and community improvement. Most concerning is how Hamilton's challenges reflect broader trends affecting industrial cities across Ontario. Even cities that appear to be succeeding may be more vulnerable than they seem. These 10 cities represent more than just economic statistics. They're home to hundreds of thousands of Ontarians whose lives and livelihoods hang in the balance. The warning from the Premier isn't just about municipal finances, it's about the future of entire communities and the people who call them home. What do you think about these cities and their challenges? Have you seen these impacts in your own community? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tell us which city's situation concerns you most. If you found this analysis helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content about Ontario's economic landscape. Click the bell icon to get notified when we release our next video exploring potential solutions to these critical challenges.